Morning, HD. Hope you're having a good Friday morning. Hope you've had a great week, and I hope you've got a great weekend ahead. I want to talk a little bit today about a guy named Moses. Familiar story, familiar character in Scripture, and sometimes I think about Moses as this kind of guy, a guy who's this superhero, the superstar of the Old Testament, a guy who had it all together, who had all the right moves, all the right words, and a guy whose plan was executed. But when we dig a little deeper into this familiar story, I think we start to see sort of different things happening. We're reminded that Moses is a guy for whom the plans didn't usually work out the way that he imagined or the others imagined for him. He went from being sort of this Israelite that was under threat to being part of Pharaoh's household, to being banished, to finding a family, and to settling down. And then sort of late in life, he's got this, he has a family, has a son, and he's tending sheep. And I imagine he's probably looking forward to a well-deserved retirement after a fairly tumultuous life. And that's when God goes, boom, hey, I've got this job for you, burning bush, and I want you to do something different. And I can imagine Moses is like, wait, what? Are you sure? I'm not so certain about that. God says to him, so I've heard the cry of my people in Egypt. And so now, verse 10, so now go, I am sending you. And this is where the sort of the real Moses kind of comes out. And over the next two chapters, we see this guy who's not necessarily super enthusiastic about the task. In fact, we see this sort of escalating sequence of excuses and reasons and evasions. Who am I that I should go? Are you sure? I'm not, I'm just a regular guy. I don't think I'm the right guy for the job. What if they don't believe me? I'm not very eloquent. I'm not a good speaker. And then finally, in chapter 4, verse 13 of Exodus, he just comes out with the honest and beautiful truth. Oh, Lord, please send somebody else. And I love the honesty of that. I love the sense of like, that is true. I think that's something we often feel like. It's like, I wish this were different. I wish somebody else could go. But I also love God's answers to Moses's hesitations. God kind of responds to Moses' hesitation with an affirmation of who he is, of his sovereignty, of his authority, of his power, of his long-standing relationship and faithfulness to the Israelite people, and of his promise to sustain Moses through his power and through surrounding him with people. And so we get this clear message in Exodus 3 and 4 of five sort of, to me, key things. Number one, God cares about the well-being of his people in Israel, or in Egypt, the Israelites in Egypt. Two, he reminds Moses that Moses isn't in this alone. While Moses has the task, now go, God never says, now go and you're on your own. He always kind of says, now go, and I am going to do this along with you and through you. Which gets us to number 3, which is God remind Moses about who is in charge, who's really got the authority and the power here, and whose ability and whose authority is going to actually execute and accomplish the task. 4, that God promises to surround Moses with people. And 5, that God doesn't expect Moses to do it. He expects Moses to start it. And it's that whole idea that Moses isn't going to be the one who accomplishes it, although it's through Moses and with Moses that God accomplishes his plan for his people. And for me, that's a really neat way of looking at a story, especially when I'm feeling, for myself, maybe a little unequal to a task, when maybe what I see outside seems insurmountable, when it seems too big for me to tackle on my own. It's a good story for me to remember these same 5 things, which were true for Moses and are still true for us. Number 1, that God cares deeply about our well-being. He hears our cries. He hears our pleas. He hears our prayers, and still is there and answering and listening to everything that we bring to him. Number 2, we're not in this alone. We are not abandoned by God in this time. We still have God with us. Number 3, that God is still sovereign over everything. That sometimes we feel like, oh, what's going on? And we need to have this reminder that God is still in charge of of our world, of our nation, of our city, of our universe, of time and of history and of cosmos. God is still sovereign and in charge of all these things. Number four, that God surrounds us with people, that we live in community, that we have teachers, parents, friends, pastors, church communities, neighbors who are going to support us and encourage us, and we are surrounded by people who sustain us. And that's a beautiful thing. And number five, a good reminder that it's not up to us to accomplish everything. We don't have to single-handedly defeat COVID or defeat poverty, but that we are tasked with the call to go and do what we can to be good neighbors, to help out where we can, to be good citizens, and to do what we can to serve each other and to serve God. So a good reminder for me in this time of uncertainty and this time sometimes where things feel big, that the story of Moses, true for the Israelites, true for me, and that it's a comforting thing. I hope you find some peace and some comfort in that too. And I hope you all have an amazing weekend, HD. God bless.